Time for Collective Two's Top Trader Radio, where each week we bring you in-depth conversations and insights from standout strategy managers featured on the C2 platform. With your host, Charley Wright.
Hello and welcome to Collective Two's Top Trader Radio. I'm Charley Wright. We're very pleased you've joined us, and we'd like to welcome today's guest, David Stevens. He's the creator and portfolio manager of the SystematicBlue SP500 strategy on the Collective 2 platform. Dave, welcome to Collective 2's Top Trader Radio.
Thanks, Charlie.
So, Dave, you have a day job. You're the director of software development for a company in Silicon Valley. You
That's
guys
right.
create specialized software used by major corporations. But in our conversation today, we're talking about your trading strategy. You've been trading markets for a couple of decades, and on Collective 2's platform, you've had your strategy up there for 3 years. Your strategy trades daily or potentially daily on the S&P 500 at the end of the day using mean reversion and trend following indicators. So tell us a little about you and your day job and about your trading.
Okay. Well, I mean, you covered a lot of it there. I'm the director of software development at a Silicon Valley firm. It's an industrial firm and industrial software that's used by major corporations like BMW and Boeing. It's also used by NASA. It's not very interesting software, but it does have a correlation to the market in that the software is control software that measures something like a satellite, how it's moving, and goes through some control algorithms, and then we make modifications to the item under test. And the stock market is kind of the same sort of thing. You've got this thing out there, and you have to measure it, and you've got money online, and do you buy more or sell or whatever. And so I've kind of always had this hobby through my life of playing with the stock market almost since the internet started and E-Trade went online and kind of made online trading work. I was there. I kind of got online and started immediately losing my money, but also learning. So I'm just as important as what I am as what I'm not. I'm not a money manager. I'm an independent citizen. I manage my own money. And I've got some people that follow me on Collective 2.
Okay, well, appreciate it. So how did you get started in trading? Was this something that you just started doing a little bit of, or have you been interested since, as a freshman in high school? And in trading, have you been into options and futures markets and things like that? Has it been the U.S. market? Are you into markets? Are you into individual stocks? Tell us a little about that background.
I was in the stock club in high school. When I got a little older and started working, I watched the stock market, but it was kind of far away and difficult, dealing with brokers and, reading prices in the newspaper just wasn't very intriguing to me. So I focused on my computer science and work on computers. I'm kind of on computers all day long, every day. But when the internet came around and the stock market got on the computer and I could get prices in real time and you could make trades, it suddenly became very interesting. And so I kind of very quickly got an account and started writing software to analyze prices and volume and try to find strategies and edges that would return money. So that was way back when the internet started, 95, 96, something like that. So it's been a lot of years.
Okay, and so describe for us your trading and strategy development for us, will you?
Yes. So the system that I've got on Collective 2, SystematicBlue SP500, is a index trading program. It trades the S&P 500. This was a purposeful decision on my part. I have several trading strategies that I use. However, I think that an index trading strategy works very, very well on Collective 2 because as more people join up and use it, it's quite simple. It can take a lot of other people's money following it, and I don't think it will impact the edge. So I kind of spent a lot of effort focusing very specifically on a type of system that I thought would work well in Collective 2, and that's what I've been running there for 3 years. In addition, it's compatible with IRAs. I use it to trade my IRA. It trades end of day. It doesn't. It only trades once a day maximum, and usually it doesn't trade that often. Usually it doesn't trade more than once every couple days. I think on average it has maybe 35 trades a year.
Okay.
So it's pretty easy to follow even for manual traders.
So tell us, it sounds like if you're into mean reversion and trend following, you do no fundamental analysis. You just look at price action then.
Yeah, I've got more to say about that later, I think. Yeah, the fundamentals, I mean, this is an index, so I don't have to deal with the difficulties of individual stocks. So, I mean, that's been kind of a bugaboo of mine for a long time. I've had a lot of problems with individual stocks. I just don't like individual stocks much. But with indexes, everything's kind of averaged out. You don't have huge moves. You don't have CEOs getting arrested. You don't have all kinds of problems of that nature. So to me, it's not maybe as exciting as individual stocks, but it's lower risk, and it just works. It just seems to me to be that an index is more predictable in a lot of ways than an individual stock because of the lack of surprises that happen. It's got to be a very large surprise to really move an index.
Right. So tell us, what misconceptions do you see as being prominent in the world of investing?
There's a lot. I think if you go on to almost any financial site, go to Yahoo Finance or Google Finance and just start reading, I think 99% of what you read is not very useful. Unfortunately, just the way people think about markets and the way it's portrayed in the media, it doesn't really help people that are trying to get ahead. I mean, if the market goes up one day, then the news stories are kind of picked in hindsight for why the market went up. If it went down, they'll find the negative reasons that day that it went down. And so if anybody that has, an idea that the stock market is predicted by the news or it follows almost, any of that stuff that's talked about in those sites, you're just going to have a hard time. The market is a conglomeration of information that comes in. There's no real one thing. And the market itself doesn't even know exactly what its price should be. If it did, it would go to that price and it wouldn't move. Instead, the market is always moving. It's always in flow. And it's a very particular kind of flow. It's a flow where it goes, up too high. It goes, oh, that's too high. And it comes back down. Oh, that's too low. And it kind of wanders around and it finds a price through this movement that's almost like a dance of what its fair value is at any point in time that reflects kind of all the information. So a trading system that's going to actually work needs to look at that flow and understand that flow and be able to work off of that flow, not all the other noise that you hear in the markets.
We need to take a short break here, Dave. When we come back, let's talk about what mistakes you have made in trading in the past, because we know everybody makes mistakes, and hopefully we learn from them, and that's what counts. So what mistakes have you made in the past, and how have you learned from them? Again, we're talking with David Stevens, creator and portfolio manager of the SystematicBlue SP 500 strategy on Collective 2 platform. You're listening to Collective 2's Top Trader Radio. I'm Charley Wright, and we'll be right back.
And we just want to remind you that Top Trader Radio is brought to you by Collective 2, the world's largest automated trade-sharing marketplace. Great traders, like our guest today, ask Collective 2 to track their brokerage results in real time. Then other investors can subscribe to these trades. and automatically follow them in their own brokerage account. Pretty simple. All you have to do is register for free today at Collective2. That's collective with the number 2.com. And you too can browse hundreds of trading strategies, including full track records, detailed statistics, and experience the power yourself of cloud-based trade syncing technology. Experience the power of peer-to-peer trading at Collective2.com. All right, let's pick it back up with Charley and his guest.
Thank you, Paul. Again, we're talking with David Stevens, creator and portfolio manager of the SystematicBlue SP 500 strategy on the Collective2 platform. So as we mentioned before here, Dave, what mistakes have you made in trading in the past, and how have you learned from those mistakes?
I've made probably almost every mistake there is to make in trading. I'm one of those guys that has to make a mistake in order to learn from it. And I don't know why that is. That's just part of my personality. But I spend a lot of time making mistakes. So I've overtraded, and I've day traded, and I've bought stock that had CEOs arrested and it got delisted and just completely lost all its value. I've had exchanges take money from me. There's a story there. I don't know if I have time to go into it, but there's just a huge number of things that have kind of driven me in the direction that I am now. Probably the biggest thing is I just stay away from individual stocks. I generally stay with indexes. On my own time, I do have index future strategies and index option strategies, but they all tie into this one primary strategy that's actually on Collective2, which is just a very simple swing trade strategy that's long only. As for specific, did you want specifics on some of the mistakes I've made?
Well, not necessarily. What are a couple of lessons you've learned through mistakes?
The lessons I've learned. Well, again, the big one is just to stay away from the individual stocks. Earnings announcements, people, any kind of news event, all those shocks, they don't fit me well. I think some people really like them. I understand there's some option strategies that use, the ramp up to earnings in order to make money off of volatility, but it just doesn't work for me. So I, stick with indexes. I like indexes.
That response reminds me of the original conversation we had with Matthew Klein, who is actually the founder of Collective2. And he told us about how he started a platform in order to be an asset manager. And he found out that he was a lousy asset manager, but he was great at creating a platform that others could use. And that was the genesis of Collective2. And so we all have to know where our strengths and our weaknesses are. And if you want to know mine, just talk to my wife. She'd be more than happy to share those. But we all have strengths and weaknesses, and when the key is that we stay away from those weaknesses or we learn from them. And it sounds like you don't trade stocks because that's not something that you felt comfortable with, had a good track record with, and the like. But you like price movement, you like mean reversion, trend following, etc. with indices. And if that works for you, that can work for investors, no question about it. Let's look at the other side. What's some of the best advice you've ever heard, read, or received about trading?
That's a tough question too, because there's just so much of it that's out there, and how it applies to you is what you're going to get out of it, right? I mean, there's a lot of different people. They make money a lot of different ways. So really, the best advice that I've heard and that I think applies in general is find what works for you. Because I can't tell people exactly what sort of personality they're going to have, what psychology is going to work for them, what kind of instruments they like. But you got to find what works. And nobody can argue with something that works for you. If it works for you, it's working for you.
That's a great point. Let's ask this to build on that a little bit. How do you see your strategy that you've discussed with us here that is in the SystematicBlue SP500 strategy. How do you see that strategy matching your personality?
Well, it's an index strategy. It's longer term. I was never really interested in sitting in front of the computer and making trades all day because that takes up my time, and I actually have a full-time job, and there's other things I want to be doing. So I've always been interested, and this is one of the reasons why I got into computers as a kid, to have the computer do my work for me, whether it's my homework or trading stocks or doing the things that I do for my job. I don't want to be the one doing that. That's one of the biggest things why I've been a systematic trader with a computer for so long, that I want it to do the work. The other thing I've mentioned before, I like indexes, so it's an index thing. I've got a significant amount of money in a 401k since I've been working for almost 30 years. I want to be able to trade that 401k. It has various restrictions. I can't use stops. It can only trade at the end of the day. And so this particular strategy on Collective 2 works really well for that.
Okay, great to hear. So tell us here, there are basically three elements to an effective trading strategy. There's the psychology, okay, of, how do we handle the changes, when do we get in and out, etc. There's the money management of position sizing, risk control, etc. And then there's the strategy itself. So how would you rank those three, the psychology, the money management, and the strategy? Rank them importance in order of importance to us in successful trading.
That's a good question. If I had to rank them, I would put strategy first. If you don't have a strategy, you really don't have anything. You have to have some sort of edge. And then you have to have money management to make sure that you make money off of that edge and you don't lose it in rare edge cases. And then you have to have psychology, which I guess I'll rank third, but you have to have the psychology or you're not going to be able to stick to your system when the market challenges you and you'll lose money there. So even though, I'll give an order to these for the question, they are all extremely important and they feed off of each other. And if you're missing any one, you're going to lose money.
Great point. Appreciate that. So one of the benefits, as we all know, of Collective 2 is that it confirms and verifies track records. And so you've got a confirmed and verified 3-year track record on Collective 2, 1 month shy of 3 years, and it shows that you have performed, that your strategy has performed well. Why do you think you've been able to outperform the market during these 3 years?
It's been a pretty good market over the last 3 years, so the system hasn't really been challenged. But, as a strategy developer, it's really important when you go through the effort to, design a strategy, back test it. I use a lot of artificial intelligence techniques in the creation of what I do. So I'm using the computer to help me generate the strategies that I use. And so sometimes they don't really come from me. They come from the computer finding useful things. And so you have to be able to convert those into instructions that can be traded and verified. And so you've got this, after you do the back testing, you've got a curve fit validation that you have to go through. And so you can look at, here's my back test, here's how my system's been performing over the last 3 years, and I can see it's performing in line with what the back tests show, that my average number of wins, my average amount that I'm winning, all those things, as well as the equity curve shape itself, fit in line with the back test. And as long as that's happening, the thing is working as designed. And it was designed to outperform the S&P, both in drawdown and in return. And so far it's working.
Okay. So tell us about what percentage of the time are you in cash?
It's in cash about 55% of the time.
And that's been over the last 3 years that have, generally been, quite good. So at other times, it could obviously be in cash for a much longer period than that.
It could be, but it probably wouldn't be because it's an active system that has two sides to it. It has a trend following part and a reversion part. So the reversion side will buy when the market's kind of volatile and falling and play bounces. And then the trending side, buys when the market's less volatile and is moving nicely up. So there's not a whole lot of time where it's out for really long periods of time, maybe a month or two. It's kind of if you were to draw a sine wave, just kind of a sine wave in the air, and you were to highlight the parts of that where it's going up. It's about half of that sine wave that you want to try to catch, and the other half of the sine wave is going down. You don't want to catch that, but pretty soon it's going up again. So it's about half the time it's out of the market.
So, Dave, how can people access your strategy on Collective 2? How do they do that?
If you Google Collective 2, SystematicBlue, you'll find me.
Okay, great. So final words for our listeners.
Well, first off, let's talk a little bit about Collective 2. I love Collective 2. I've been on Collective 2 since 2006, and I'm a subscriber to systems as well as a system provider. So I have, I think, a good perspective on what it is. I've also, looked into hedge funds in the past and other kinds of alternate investments like Bitcoin and things like that. And I see Collective 2 as kind of a hedge fund for the small guy. And the transparency that Collective 2 has just blows the hedge funds away. I mean, you can see every trade in real time. You see the full history. You've got these guys validating what's happening. If you've ever, paid someone to manage your money and they cherry pick a time to talk to you so they can say, oh, over the last quarter we've done this, and it's because they cherry picked that time frame to give you a good number. There's none of that BS on Collective 2. So I, really recommend it as a general tool for this sort of thing.
Hey, thank you very much. We appreciate that. That was unsolicited and honest, straightforward opinion here.
Absolutely.
So we appreciate, Dave, you being here. We offer you our best wishes for continued success for another 3+ years on Collective 2 and for the SystematicBlue SP 500 strategy on the Collective 2 platform. And we really appreciate you joining us today and giving us the benefit of your insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Again, we've been talking with Dave Stevens, creator and portfolio manager of the SystematicBlue SP 500 strategy on the Collective 2 platform. Thank you for listening today. And to access all of our interviews, go to collective2.com/radio. That's collective, the number 2.com/radio. So for Collective 2's Top Trader Radio, this is Charley Wright reminding you to trade like you mean it.
Collective 2's Top Trader Radio is a production of OC Talk Radio and is provided for educational purposes only. Content of this program and the views of the guests should not be considered as recommendations by OC Talk Radio or investment advice from the host Charley Wright or any other entity attached to this production. Investors should always consult qualified financial, investment, tax, and legal professionals prior to any investing.